What's up, guys? Another whiteboard video to kind of go with the last one where I talked about how I have been laying out my training over this last meet prep. Now, one of the biggest reasons that my training doesn't look like the typical representation of conjugate is you usually see guys hashtagging conjugate as fuck, doing stupid variations for the max effort lifts that are nowhere near competition specific and have no real rhyme or reason other than just putting more variables in the lift for the sake of variability. And although I do believe that some variation is necessary at some points through a training career, and I do believe that hitting variations that are specific to one's needs can be absolutely beneficial for getting stronger in the short and long term, I think that a lot of guys are going wrong by just doing variation for the sake of doing something different, something that looks cool or something that's fun. Training should be boring, training should be repetitive, training should be forcing you to get better at what you need to get better at. You don't need to have fun in the gym in order to get stronger, right? So anyways, part of my strategy with how I changed up my training was instead of running max effort variations, I was just taking heavy singles on the comp lifts every single week. And part of Louis' writing, part of why he developed the max effort method the way he did, is he found that if you hit a maximal effort on a lift for enough time, you will begin to regress. Now, the number Louis cites is 3 weeks, and in my own experience, that is kind of where I ended up feeling like I was run down, feeling like I was gonna die, and feeling like I needed a break. Now, Louis' solution to that was to switch lifts every 3 weeks initially. They later on started switching lifts every single week to further avoid accommodation, further avoid that regression. Don't mind me in the middle of a water cut, so a little thirsty and gotta down this jug. Anyways, what I ended up doing, taking a little bit from the RTS, Mike Teixeira, however the fuck you say his name, playbook. The first thing I did is, instead of going to a true max effort, I would cap my efforts at about an 8.5 RPE and try to not overshoot that. Now with that strategy, I kind of just let things ride and ended up sort of allowing things to periodize themselves in terms of loading. So by going to that consistent effort every week, the number was not the same every week based on how I felt. And kind of how it ended up developing is on week one of a wave, or, well, it's not really a wave because it's kind of the same thing, but anyways, gonna break this up talking about on week one. So like first exposure to the lift, I ended up feeling pretty okay, and I made sure that I just capped my performance at that 8 RPE and let it ride as it was. Week two, I'd usually end up feeling a little bit better and performance was elevated again. So I'd go up in weight from week one to week two. Week three, I would start to feel a little bit run down. I wasn't feeling the greatest. I had to kind of focus harder in order to bring it, but my performance was able to climb yet again consistently on that third week. Now here's where the interesting part came. So Louis talking about how after 3 weeks of max effort work, you decline performance. Well, back to that week one, I felt kind of like ass, but my performance was still okay. It definitely wasn't at the peak where I was in week three, but it was usually a little bit better than it was on the previous week one. Week two, after taking the RPE to 8 and just leaving it there on the week one, I was able to come back the next week two and again feel a little bit better and bump up my performance again. By the time week three rolled around, I was starting to feel a little bit run down, but was able to elevate my performance once again. The next week one, I once again felt like smashed assholes, capped the RPE where it held, and even though I did not feel great, I was still able to perform better than the previous week one 8 RPE set. So things kind of did end up waiving themselves. I would elevate performance through 3 weeks and then be forced to regress it with my RPE range, or while sticking to my RPE range, but that's just part of the process. That's how things ended up waiving. Progress isn't linear. If you're hitting a max single on a comp lift every single week, some weeks aren't going to be as good as the previous week just because you're accumulating fatigue. The thing is though, is that if you stick to the RPE range that you've prescribe for yourself, if you stick to that certain RPE number, your performance will elevate again as you become more recovered, as you get more accommodated to this style of training, and as things progress. Now, do I think this is the best way to train max effort work? Absolutely no, but this is just what I felt that I needed to do in order to regain proficiency on the combination lifts at my new body weight. Because if you guys have been paying attention to my training for a little bit, I have sucked ass at my last 2 meets since 242. And the biggest reason for that is that when it came to the comp lifts, I wasn't familiar enough with my leverages, with where I was in space to be able to execute. Kind of touched on this in my last video, but what is the point at being all-time strong on a box squat if I don't know where I need to be without the box and I look like a baby giraffe and take 3 squats to get my opener in at the Ghost Clash? Right, guys? So specificity is important. Specificity is more than just replicating the combination lifts. Specificity comes down to what does the lifter need specific to them in a given time point. Now that I am more familiar with the comp lifts, I will probably start exploring more variations again based on what I feel my weak points are and what I feel I need to work on. But that's the next training cycle. This is how I have been structured max effort work. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, shoot me a DM, hit me up on activatedperformance.janeapp.com to book a consultation. Hit me up in the DMs to inquire about coaching. And yeah, thank you for watching. Hopefully you got something out of my rambling there.